For most of history, power has been misunderstood. It has been mistaken for force, for violence, for domination. But strength is loud, and loud things don't last. The most enduring power has always been quiet, because power was never about what you could do. It was about what people believed you could do. Empires built on strength collapse quickly. Armies exhaust resources. Fear creates resistance. Violence invites retaliation. History is filled with rulers who conquered through force and lost everything the moment that force weakened. Strength demands constant proof. Perception does not. Long before standing armies, humans understood something critical. If you control belief, you control behavior. Tribes followed leaders not because they were strongest, but because they were seen as chosen, favored, aligned with something higher. Authority began as a story. Crowns were never weapons. Robes didn't stop blades. Thrones offered no defense. Yet people knelt. Why? Because symbols shape reality. A crown convinces without force. A flag mobilizes without explanation. A title commands obedience without effort. Power hides in meaning, not muscle. Rome mastered perception. Legions mattered, but image mattered more. Roads were wide, so citizens felt Rome's reach. Architecture dwarfed the individual to reinforce insignificance. Even defeat was controlled. Rome framed losses as temporary setbacks. The empire survived not because it was unbeatable, but because people believed it was inevitable. The most powerful systems were invisible. Gods could not be challenged. Divine order could not be questioned. Kings ruled by right, not by argument. Once power is seen as sacred, resistance becomes heresy. Perception transforms authority into destiny. As societies evolved, power became subtler. No more crowns. No more divine declarations. Instead, institutions, bureaucracy, normalcy. The strongest systems no longer look like power at all. They look like rules, like routines, like reality. Today, power rarely raises its voice. It nudges. It suggests. It frames choices. People believe they're free because no one is forcing them. But freedom shaped by perception is still control. The most powerful influence is the one you don't notice. Once power is seen clearly, it weakens. This is why true power avoids explanation. It prefers complexity, confusion, endless debate, because clarity creates resistance. Perception thrives where understanding blurs. Power exists only because people participate. They comply. They repeat. They reinforce. Not out of fear, but because it feels normal. The most stable systems don't need enforcement. They rely on belief. The most influential figures in history were not the strongest. They were the most convincing. They shaped narratives, controlled symbols, defined meaning. They understood that once perception is set, reality follows. Because teaching this would break the spell. A population that understands perception is harder to guide, harder to unify, harder to predict. So power is discussed in terms of strength, while perception does the real work. Power does not announce itself. It does not explain. It does not justify. It waits to be accepted. And once it is, it no longer needs force. Strength fades. Weapons rust. Empires fall. But perception endures. And those who understand it rarely need to raise their voice. Because power was never about strength. It was always about what people believed. And belief is fragile. It can be shaped, redirected, replaced. Those who understand this rarely argue. They allow others to speak, to debate, to exhaust themselves, while perception quietly settles into something stable. Power watches patterns, not people. It studies behavior at scale, repetition, reaction. When enough individuals respond the same way, power no longer needs instruction. It only needs time. Throughout history, the most effective shifts in power were invisible in the moment. They looked like progress, like reform, like safety. People didn't feel controlled. They felt guided, and guidance feels voluntary. This is why revolutions often fail. They attack visible authority while leaving perception untouched. Remove a ruler, and the system replaces them. Change a law, and the belief remains. Power survives by moving where resistance is not looking. The greatest trick power ever learned was decentralization. When no single figure holds authority, authority cannot be confronted. It dissolves into processes, committees, standards. No one feels responsible. Everyone feels compliant. And over time, what began as influence becomes identity. People no longer ask why they believe something. They defend it. They internalize the narrative as their own. At that point, power no longer needs to act. It has already won. This is why silence remains its strongest tool. Silence allows assumptions to grow, allows stories to complete themselves. A system that explains itself reveals its limits. A system that stays silent lets imagination do the work. Even resistance is often anticipated. Opposition is folded into the narrative, given boundaries, given language. As long as resistance behaves predictably, it strengthens the illusion of freedom. History remembers tyrants because they were obvious. It forgets architects because they were subtle. The most powerful individuals left no monuments, no statues, no records, only behaviors that persisted long after they were gone. And this is the final echo. Power does not need to dominate those who never question the frame. It does not need to silence those who already speak its language. It only needs to remain unseen. So when you look at history or at the present, don't ask who is strongest. Ask whose story feels inevitable. Ask which ideas feel too normal to challenge, because that is where power lives. Quiet, unannounced, unquestioned. Strength demands attention. Perception demands acceptance. And once accepted, it no longer needs force.